Hello everyone and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. My name is Amy Al-Khalisi, EdTech Project Manager here at CTL, and I'm joined by Mike Mahaney, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, and Stephanie Shea, Marketing Manager. For those of you who are not familiar with CTL, we are headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and have been providing innovative IT solutions to education and government customers for over 26 years. We are a Google for Education partner, and some of our most popular products include our brands of ruggedized CTL and to-go PC laptops, convertibles, 2-in-1s, and tablets designed specifically for K-12 education. Over the last 2.5 years, we've worked with Google to introduce a line of CTL Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. As part of our commitment to education, CTL is offering monthly professional development webinars for our education customers. These webinars will include a variety of topics relevant to K-12 EdTech, but will have a big focus on Google Apps for education and Chromebooks in the classroom. Today's webinar is an introduction to Google Docs, presented by Blanca Duarte of Logic Wing Professional Development and Technology Consulting. However, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of an attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right-hand corner. You are listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane, and the dial information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. We will have a large group here today. If we run out of time, you will be contacted by your sales representative to make sure all your questions are answered. But before we begin, I'd like to take a poll to learn more about you guys today. Please indicate if you have ever used Google Docs. We will take a moment to give a chance for you to fill out the poll. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Give you guys about another 30 seconds. Everybody see that? All right. So it looks like some experience, it's about even. A lot of experience, and 33% shows I'm an expert. So, all right, that gives us some good information. Thank you for doing that. All right. Hopefully you guys can't see that on there anymore. I am moving on. All right, before I turn it over to Blanca for our presentation, I would like to remind everyone about some resources for Nevada Ready 21 educators. When you visit the nr21.ctl.net website, you can learn about upcoming professional learning opportunities, sign up for updates about upcoming events and information, and join our Google Plus private community for Nevada 21 educators. I would now like to introduce Blanca Duarte of Logic Wing Professional Development and Technology Consulting. Blanca is a Google Apps certified trainer, Intel Teach Elements online trainer, and an experienced educator in the public and private sector for over 25 years, and will take you through an overview of this presentation today. So I am going to transfer this over to Blanca.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Today we are going to do an introduction to Google Docs. So I'm just going to give a high-level overview, and then we have some demos that I would like to work on with you. Okay. So what is Google Docs? Well, Google Docs is part of the Google suite of productivity tools that include Sheets, Slides, and Drawings. Google Docs oftentimes is called kind of the Microsoft Word equivalent. So it's a word processor. You can create documents, you can embed images, you can make tables. One of the unique things about Google Docs is that you can have multiple people in the document simultaneously editing, commenting, and viewing at the same time. So currently you can have 50 people simultaneously in the document, and I have done that. Of course, a big tip is to make sure that you've got some tables put together where people are putting their name in the first column, otherwise it can get a little tricky. You can also share documents with up to 200 individual users. So if you have a document that you want to share with, let's say, your entire school or an entire district, what you want to do is select and share it as viewable with everyone in the district. It's easier to do it that way, or you can also use groups. One of the other nice things is that every change is automatically saved. So because the document is created in Google's cloud on Google servers and it's online, Google will just about every second save the document all the time. So this makes it easy for you to go back to revisions. How do you access Google Docs? Well, there's a whole bunch of ways that you can access the Google tools. One way is you can go into Google Drive, click on the red New button in the upper left-hand corner, and then select Google Docs. The other way is simply by going to your web browser and typing in docs.google.com. So the main difference between the two of these is that when you type in docs.google.com directly into your toolbar, what will happen is you will get a group of templates that show up at the very top of the screen. Okay, so right here where it says start a new document, so you can still create a blank one, or you have memos, you have brochures, newsletters, and such that you can create. When you're on a Chromebook, what you may want to do, if Docs is going to be a program that students use frequently, is you'll want to pin the Docs icon to the shelf. Otherwise, you can click on the search key on your Chromebook, go to your All Apps section, and find the Docs icon. And finally, when you go to a web page, you always have the ability to click on that grid on the upper right-hand corner. That's your apps launcher, and after you click on it, you'll be able to get to the Docs icon. So lots of ways for you to get access to Docs. We love saying no files left behind. Why? Because when you are first starting off using Google Apps for Education, you might find yourself with lots of Microsoft Office files that you want to possibly convert to Google Docs so that you have the added ability of collaborative editing and sharing. What you can do is you can upload it to Drive and convert the document automatically if you've got your setting turned on. Otherwise, when it's in Drive, you'll see your Word document in the list view with your W, and you can always select it and then say open with Google Docs. This also allows you to create a Google Doc from your Microsoft Word. So what you see is a screenshot of what Google Docs looks like when you first log in. Adding text is very simple, right? So you can just type. You also have the ability to do voice typing, so that's voice to text, which is pretty amazing. Voice to text is actually available in more than 40 languages, and even saying things like punctuations will actually come through in about 7 different languages. You'll notice at the top left-hand corner, it says Untitled Document. The first thing that I say to students and staff is as soon as you've created a document, go ahead and click in that space and create the document title. Then you've got your toolbar and you've got your icons. Google Docs also gives you the ability to insert content. So what's pretty unique here is that when you go to insert an image, you do have the option to actually search Google for images that do not have any kind of copyright on them. You can also search Life magazine images and insert them directly into your document. And you can also insert some stock images, stock photos that Google has available. So if you are creating newsletters or you are looking for, a clean picture to put into a presentation, you can typically find those images without having to go out to the browser and copy and paste an image into your document, although you could do that as well. You can also do things like insert tables. The table of contents that you see down at the end is unique because what it allows you to do is create a table of contents somewhere in the document so that it can keep track of pages that have specific headings. So what you would do is you highlight your text, you give it a special heading type, and it shows up automatically in your table of contents, which then you can refresh when you're working on your document. That's especially helpful if you're creating student handbooks, faculty handbooks, if you're working on a grant that has different sections. Something new that Google came out with is the document outline, and the document outline will also give you a table of contents, but it will appear to the left of the actual document, whereas the table of contents will appear right inside of the document. Something else that's unique is this drawing, the ability to actually insert a drawing using Google Drawings, which is the tool that allows you to create images. So if you have a student who's writing a report and they want to go ahead and either insert a drawing that they've created or work on a Venn diagram and then insert that Venn diagram into the document, this is where they would do that as well. You do have the ability to print documents, so as long as you have printing capability, you're simply going to go to File and Print. This is also the section where you can go to Page Layout and turn your page layout into a different sized document. So what really makes Google Docs so different than other word processors? Well, first of all, we talked about sharing and collaborating. There is a blue Share button at the upper right-hand corner of every Google Doc. When you click on it, you're able to see that you can give other people option to edit the document, or you can restrict their access by just allowing them to comment in the document, and then you can further restrict them by just allowing them to view the document. So some examples might be that in edit mode, maybe it's a KWL chart that you want your students in the class to work on. So I would give everybody edit mode. In a comment mode, I might have review notes that I'm sharing with students that I don't necessarily want them to edit or change any information, but I do want to allow them commenting access in case they have questions about the notes that I've left them. And then view accent, that might be, the viewing ability might be something that maybe I'm creating a flyer where I want kids to share it with their parents at home, or if I'm an administrator, maybe it's my my memos that I've now converted to electronic format. Something new that Google has added, a new feature, is after you select edit, comment, or view, you can go back into the sharing section and you can click right to the left of where it says can edit, and you can actually restrict the editing capability to a particular time. So you can actually stop sharing the document at a certain time, and that makes it even more powerful because, you know, sometimes you just want to share information with folks and it's really only relevant maybe for a certain amount of time, and so you can set expiration dates now. You also have the ability to provide feedback. In this case, we see that we have the ability to leave comments. So this is a comment. If I highlight or place my cursor somewhere in the document where there's a word, I can actually leave a comment. This could be just a question that I'm asking. or maybe I'm not referencing anybody directly, but if I wanted to reference someone directly, I could add the plus sign and then their email address. And what would happen there is they would get an email telling them that there was a comment left for them inside of this document. So that's one way to provide feedback. And then when that person comes into the document, they can reply to my comment. Another way that you can leave feedback is you can actually, by clicking on this pencil on the upper right-hand corner, you can change the editing capability to suggestion mode. And what happens in suggestion mode is something that most of us who have used track comments will find familiar. So you are able to make suggestions in the documents, so maybe cross language out, change the vocabulary, change the structure of a sentence, delete things. But what will happen is you'll see this green type. So the person who is reviewing the document with you will see your suggestions, and then they will get a little checkbox. They'll either accept the changes or they will reject the changes. So this is another way that students and teachers can actually work on documents together. Like I said, it's also very helpful when you're working on things like student handbooks and grants. One of my favorite tools is actually the chat feature. So you have a chat function in the Google Doc. It's something that students often, it's the first thing that they find when you first introduce them into a Google Doc. And for adults, it's often the very last thing that we find. I always say about 99 times out of 100, nobody asks me about the chat icon unless I actually bring it up. But 100 times out of 100, the children find it even before we mention it. But why is this chat important? Well, because you don't always have the ability to be next to somebody or have somebody on the phone when you're working on something together. So if you can imagine giving a project to three students in a group, and each one of them goes home, they're able to log in, they're able to work together, but maybe roles haven't been assigned yet. And so students can click on that chat box and actually have a conversation without picking up the phone and calling the other person. Something else that you can do in Google Docs, which is pretty unique, is you can download the Google Doc in other formats. So what other formats? We have Microsoft Word, we have Open Document Format, Rich Text Format. You can download it as a PDF document. You can also print to PDF. You can download it as a plain text or even as a web page. So you do have the ability to download what you've written in a Google Doc in other formats in case you need to open them up in other programs. If you've been a Google Doc user for a long time, as I have, you have gone from using Google Docs on your desktop to Google Docs on your laptop to Google Docs on a cell phone to Google Docs on a tablet. So it's pretty powerful when you have the ability to actually not just open up a document and view it while you're on the go, but actually be able to edit. And in these examples, you see that we've got, more than one person is in a document reviewing, changing, editing, highlighting text. So you still have the ability to collaborate in real time. Your Google Doc app will work sometimes a little bit differently on your iPhone, iPad, and Android, so you'll have different functionalities and capabilities. For the most part, though, you can do things like bring in images, you can add comments, you can read your comments, things like that. You also have the ability to download docs if you think that you are not going to be connected to the internet, so you can actually download one of those docs right on your phone, work on it, and then when you're connected to the internet, it will sync and those updates will be shown the next time you log into a computer. Revision history is also one of the more powerful features, in my opinion, of Google Docs. Because Google is constantly saving your work to the web, you can actually go back to a point in time and see the revisions that other people have made. In this example, I'm going to my toolbar, I'm clicking on File and then selecting See Revision History. On the right-hand side of my document, a little box pops up that says revision history on it. It shows all of the times, starting with the very beginning when the document was created, when there was work in the document, who it was done by. In this case, this document was shared just with a link for everybody to edit, and because they were not signed into Google, it actually just captured them as anonymous. Then again, I went into the document, made a change. We have a couple of more changes over the next few revisions. What I can do then is, we'll take this as example, I can highlight Empowered and scroll through the document, and what I will see is I will see any changes that were made at that time by this person in the color green. Okay, so the color green is what it shows on my computer, and I can see that they had typed in cyberbullying and didn't spell it correctly, they crossed it off and they re-typed it. I'm able to see what students, for example, write in a report. I can tell what time they access the document. I can tell how much work has been put in by which child, and perhaps whether one child was doing more work than another child. So revision history is pretty powerful. The first time that students get a little bit out of hand sometimes in a document, I show them revision history and I show them how I can tell who did what. And that sometimes is enough to stop them from doing that again. The good thing too is that sometimes we have people who accidentally erase a large chunk of the document, or who maybe press delete and don't realize that they can go back to a different version. So right here, where whenever you highlight at a certain time and date, you can actually say restore this revision, and it will bring back all of your text. Another really great feature is the research toolbar. So the toolbar allows me to search by highlighting words in my document, or I can just start with a blank slate, but I can go up to Tools, click on Research, and I can type in what I'm looking for, and I can actually get web results and images and quotes and tables right inside of my Google Doc. So this is super helpful for students or for adults who are working on a paper who would like to just be able to preview different articles online without having to open up a new web browser. When I find the information that I'm looking for, or let's say that I had already pulled information from a particular website, I could do a search and then I could actually cite the information right from this area. This is that voice typing that I was talking about. When you go to Tools, you see voice typing, so that's pretty exciting. What's really exciting too is that it works really, really well. Also something to note on the Chromebooks, I don't necessarily think that voice typing is turned on by default, so it may be something that you'll have to go through with your students in order for them to have the ability to type with their voice. Again, this is very helpful for children who perhaps can't type well, or perhaps they can't spell and they have difficulty spelling. For young students, this is really great. For students who need help with diction and speaking, it's a great way for them to practice their fluency, because if they're speaking into the mic and it's picking up the correct pronunciation, it should spell the word correctly. You can also extend the functionality of the word processor with something called add-ons. So add-ons are third-party tools that developers have created in order to increase the functionality of a Google Doc. And some of that functionality can be scanning the document for grammar corrections. Other functionality like Kaizena, for example, allows you to leave voice comments in a document. So if you wanted to leave a voice recording instead of just a little typed comment for a child, you could use Kaizena to do that. These are some of our favorites, but every week I see more and more. So we'll do some of these together. Okay, so before I continue and we do like a little fun demo, maybe I'll ask Amy, does anybody have any questions?
Hi. So as of now, I don't see any questions, but I kind of have one if that's okay to ask.
Yeah.
Going back when you create a document and it automatically saves,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to send it to somebody, but you don't want them to see all the edits and all that when you share with them, can they save that into a PDF to send that so they can't be allowed to make changes or, things like that?
Absolutely. So let me give you an example because you can still see my screen. Here I am in a working document. I can go up to File and then say Download As, and I can download it as a PDF from this area right here. Okay, so then I can download as a PDF, and I can also attach it. The other thing that I can do is I can email right from this area. So I can go to File, Email as attachment, and when I do that, I can say attach this as a PDF or a Word document, etc. Okay, I can even paste the item into the email. I mean, that's a super handy way to where you don't have to download the PDF and then attach it to an email. You can just attach it. You can just email it directly from this section. Something else that you may not know is that if I give sharing permissions to a document with just viewing ability, they will not be able to see the revision history. So you don't have to worry about somebody going in and looking at all the different changes or seeing the last time. Whenever you were in there. The one thing that I will say is that typically, like if you hover over this little section here, it will tell you when the last edit was made. And even in Google Drive, when you share a document, it will tell you the last time that document was modified.
Oh, that's great information. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
So I do have another question from Miss Kayla. Is there a way for a teacher to see the conversation history when students use the chat in the doc feature?
That is a great question. So without a third-party application, the answer is no. However, what I teach my kids to do is to keep a close eye on the chat, and if they see that anybody is saying something not nice, or saying something inappropriate, I teach them how to take a screenshot and then show it to me. So using the chat feature is something that I think is really powerful because as we are helping children learn to write and collaborate and work together, we're also teaching them how to act appropriately in social settings, and that includes social media. So it's a great opportunity to have conversation with students about how they respect each other and what that chat feature is supposed to be used for. I will tell you that I do give my kids freedom that, especially the first couple of times that they use that chat box, that if they start to talk about the ball game for a couple of minutes or for a minute or two, I don't necessarily get them off track. I'll gently tell them to get back on task. But I really like to promote that feature as a way for kids to be able to socially interact that maybe wouldn't in a normal setting or in a face-to-face setting even interact. The other thing that you could do, although again it's not something that I would recommend, but I do know districts that have done this, is that you can turn the chat feature off at the main, I think at the subboard level, and I'll have to check that. But again, it's not something that I recommend just because I really think it's one of those things where I think it's a great way to help kids learn how to live in a digital world.
Okay, I think that does answer that question. Yeah, the super admin, they have those rights to turn those on and off, and each district in school I know will be able to make their own decisions for that. And I believe as well you can turn off specific ones. So if there's a student abusing it, after certain warnings, then that can get taken care of. But I don't know. I mean, that would be a great question for one of the admins, the tech admins, if they can actually go in and see what they're writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are third-party tools that will capture basically everything that you need to capture. One of the things that I will say about turning children's ability, individual students' ability on and off to be able to chat is that's a feature in Classroom for sure. So in Classroom, there you have the ability to have a thread, a discussion, or kids can comment to each other after a post or an announcement. When a child in Classroom seems to be out of hand, or after a couple of warnings they still haven't stopped, the teacher does have the ability to mute, what we call mute a student, which means that that student then loses their privilege to post in the chat.
Okay.
That's in Google Classroom.
Well, as of now, that's the only questions that I have right now. We can revisit those questions too at the end.
Great. All right, so I have a little activity for us. I have a short link on this screen. A short link is a URL that's been placed into a website. In this case, it's goo.gl, and that's a URL shortener. And so this really long URL then becomes a short link, much shorter. And so it's easier to give a link like this to kids to type into the URL bar so that they can get to a document easily. Something else you can do also is create a QR code. But anyway, if people on our participants wouldn't mind going ahead and typing this URL into their browser, I'd like to pop in there and just kind of go through some of the things that I've highlighted. Okay, and here's the URL again. I just want to highlight the fact the URL for Google.gl does not have a www in front of it. So sometimes when you're teaching kids how to go into this particular short link or how to use it, they get error messages because they think it's www. So there is no World Wide Web before it. What I'll ask everyone to do, and you'll see as people pop in, hey, and I see Mark there, as people pop into our document, what I would like for you to do, you're going to see, hey, there you go, and Mark is starting to use the chat right away, which is great. As you start to pop into the document, please go into the table, pick a row where you don't see anybody's cursor, and just start to put your name in, and let's start to fill in this chart. This is a KWL chart about things that I know about Google Apps for Education, and then things that I wonder about it. Okay, so you'll see that Mark and I are having an interaction on the right-hand side. You can also see that this little gear in the chat box is just kind of plain audio notifications when new chat messages arrive. So that means that I can just keep that closed if I want to, and then if anybody starts to chat, I'll hear it and I'll open it up. Okay, so don't be shy. And I'm going to ask Stephanie and Amy to do that too, if you don't mind. And while everybody is in the document, once you kind of type a little something in the K column, well, you can go ahead and go into the last column and just practice inserting an image. This is also kind of fun for those of you, especially who've never inserted an image before. What you'll do is you'll put your cursor, and again, this is a table. So this is, I like using tables because it helps people visually see where they are in the document, and I can also keep people kind of on track. If I'm going to go up to the insert, and you can do this as well in your row. And I won't ruin Tara's there. I'm going to go down here and just put my name. So I'm going to go up to insert. And remember I said that you can insert images. When you insert images, you can actually upload an image from your computer. You can take a snapshot. So the Chromebooks have cameras on them. And if kids want to take a snapshot, let's say, of a word problem that they've maybe worked on a slate, and they want to take a picture of their notebook or something, or a slate, and put it into the document, they can do that. You can also insert an image by URL. You can go into your albums. So if you've got Google Photos turned on, you can do that. You can go into Google Drive, but search is really kind of the unique piece. So if I go into Google Search, I've got a couple ways that I can insert images. I've got Google searches, and again, the only results that I'm going to see are the ones that have really the least amount of restriction. So whatever images on the internet are allowed for commercial use with modification. But I can also go into Life magazine. So let's say that I was working on a report for the Civil War. I could type in Civil War, and lo and behold, up pop historical images. So I can put an image in there. Notice when I highlight the image, it actually gives me a little notice telling me where it actually came from. In this case, it says images.google.com, so Google must have these images loaded somewhere. And I can also go to stock images. And there are no images for Civil War, but I know that I frequently look for images of students, and so I type in students, and I've got some really beautiful pictures of kids that I can put into a presentation.
Okay. Can I get the code again? Sorry, I was in a different screen.
Sure, absolutely. I'll even put it in the chat box in case you need it. Okay. Something else that I'll note is sometimes you're working on documents, and it's a document that you'll probably be working on for a while. So let's say for the next 2 weeks your kids are working on a research project. One thing that you can have them do is go up here next to the name of the document. There's a star. If you click on that star, it's almost like creating a favorite for your document. So when you go to Google Drive, there is a filter that's called starred, and if I click on starred, I'll be able to see my document up at the top. Now I have lots of documents, so I'm going to have to sort this in order to see this document that I just starred, but I think you get the picture. So that's a good way to get back to your document quickly. Okay. Other things that you can do. By the way, thanks guys. You know what? If you want to try inserting an image, that would be great. Other things that you can insert. So I talked about inserting a drawing, and I'm just going to go into my row, and I'm going to say insert drawing so that you can see where this takes me. What this will do is it will open up actually Google Drawings for me, and Google Drawings is a tool, like I said earlier, where you can create Google images. Kids use this to, especially if they have touchscreen capability and the ability to draw, they might use this to demonstrate a problem or an equation, how to solve an equation. They might use this to also just demonstrate a part of a story. If you've got kids who are drawing pictures, you can use this for storyboarding even. If you had a storyboard template in a Google Doc in landscape format, you could have kids come into the drawing tool and do this. I have teachers who use drawing to have, and kids actually create logos in here. So let's say that I just wanted to add, I don't know, maybe a call out and write wow. I could save and close my drawing, and it would automatically be inserted into my document. Oh, awesome! So I see that Kayla Miller went in here and did that. Now, Kayla, I'm going to leave you a little comment. And I'm going to do a great job. Okay.
Oh, I see Michelle has something she typed in there too. Why is my voice typing tool great? It could be because it's just not enabled.
Yes. So that's actually something else that you can do. So I see some people put inserted a table. Awesome. You can try out voice typing. Now, I want everybody to go into the row that they added information. Okay. And let me see. I'm just going to put hockey. Oops. How do I locate information about hockey? Okay. So in this case, I'm going to highlight the word hockey. Now remember I told you there's a research tool embedded in Google Docs. So what I want you to do is go into your row, highlight a word that let's see, revision history, you can highlight revision history, or adaptive. You can actually do definitions as well. But highlight a word that you think you might want to do some research on. Go up to the toolbar, click on Tools, and then click on Research. And what you'll notice is on the right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to get a bar that will give you web results about the word that you've highlighted or that you're next to. If I select this little arrow underneath this G, which is the Google search, I'll actually see that I can narrow down my search even in this particular research section, and I can just look for images of hockey. Okay, so if I was doing a report on hockey and I wanted to add an image, I could easily find it. In this case, I'm hovering over a picture of hockey players, right, so it enlarges, and I can just click on it and then drag it down to my table. Okay, so that's one. The other thing that you'll notice is that I've got a little 1 here, so it gives me a footnote, and if I scroll down, it actually will give me, not an entire citation, but it will give me the URL where the image came from. So that is super helpful and a great way to have a conversation about making sure that information is getting cited, because it really is so easy for children to have information from the internet, copy and paste it. I think being able to use this research tool, and then when you pull in information, it reminds you that there's a citation there or there's a URL where it came from. I can also look directly at Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is another tool that Google has that allows you to search journals, so journal articles. So a lot of times if I'm running a professional development session around what types of technologies there's been research around to help students, let's say, with understanding concepts or constructing knowledge, I might go into Google Scholar and do a search on research on what people have written about it. In addition to Google Scholar, I can look for quotes. So quotes are a great add-on, especially to a presentation. I can look for dictionary, and then I'm going to click on tables just so that you can see how interesting this is. So what kind of tables do you think that we have regarding hockey? Well, look at that. You've got a table with countries, number of players, percentage of population that play hockey, etc. So if you're looking for data, and let's say that you're a math teacher, a stat teacher, a teacher that just wants to incorporate more analytics into lessons, you also have the ability to find tables with data about different subject areas. So tables are not just for math. Okay. So what else can we do? I'm going to take you over to translating document. Well, this is also one of my favorite things. So let's say that you've written a letter home to parents, and you have 2 students in your class who perhaps need the letter translated into another language. Now, you're using the same kind of technology that you're using for Google Translate. So those of you who've ever used Google Translate know that while it's good, it's not perfect. And so just a word of caution is what I would say to my parents is, I'm using a new tool, and I really want to try and communicate better with you in the language that you understand, and so I'm going to be using a new tool that allows me to translate documents into your language. Please let me know if you can understand it, something like that, so that you have a disclaimer. But it's really exciting because let's say that this were a letter you were writing home to parents. You go to Tools and click on Translate Document. It asks you for the new document title. I can say translate into all of these different languages. I'm going to pick Spanish, and let's see. When I click on Translate, a copy of the document is made, and the translation is created. And you can see that it even brings in your accents and your question marks. So that is pretty exciting. I always say to my foreign language teachers, it's kind of exciting to let kids, take content that's in English and then have it translated into into the language that they're studying, because then what they have to do is take this and make sure that it's all correct. So it gives them a little bit more work to do. So a straight translation might take students really long, but you know, looking over a translated copy, I'm sure can teach them as well. Oh, I love Amy practicing your comments. So go ahead and leave a comment for someone in this document. Everybody who's in the document, go ahead and just go to the first line of maybe the person who wrote right underneath you. Okay. Put your cursor somewhere in that area or highlight a word. Go up to insert and say comment, and just practice leaving some comments, and then feel free to respond to each other as well. While you're doing that, I will just make a note that there is a button next to the share button on the upper right-hand corner that's called comments, and what's housed there is every comment that someone has made in the document, as well as any comments that have been resolved. So let's say that you've got kids who have left you questions or who have left threads on the right side of the document. Once we've got answers to those questions, let's say, or answers to those comments, you can actually click on the resolve button, and your comments never disappear. What happens is they're still found in this comments area. Okay. And finally, the other thing about comments that's important is next to the comments, you have to click on comments first, and then you notice that there's a comment section and there's also a notification section. So especially if you are going to have, let's say, a student handbook that you're working on with several people in your school, you want to make sure that you turn notifications on to the word all. Otherwise, sometimes the default is only yours, and that just means that unless you're directly pinged or directly someone puts a plus sign in your email address, unless someone does that, you're not going to get notified that there have been changes to the document. So instead of my having to remember at 3 o'clock every afternoon to hop into a student faculty, a student handbook that's being updated, I can just get notified every time somebody makes a change. The nice thing too is that that change or that question that that person is asking comes into your email thread. So if it's something that you can answer quickly, you can actually just respond right in your email. You don't have to open up the document, which again saves you time, allows you to leave comments on the go, things like that. Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing before we leave this document. Does anybody have any questions about some of the basic functionalities and kind of the special things that Google Docs lets you do?
Not showing any questions, but feel free to type notes to Blanca in there. There was something Mark had mentioned, it looked like.
Great, so I'm putting in some of my favorite apps there. And hello, Mark. Okay. Let me see. I don't see anything. Do you see anything in there? Out. How do I enable it? Oh, when my voice. I'll tell you, Michelle, I'm not 100% sure why your voice typing tool is grayed out, but what you can do is you can check your Chrome settings, and those Chrome settings are over on the right-hand side of the screen. Those are the 3 lines. You want to click on your Chrome menu and then go to settings, and then voice typing or voice, the ability to add your voice, to have voice functionality is somewhere in advanced settings. But it also could be 2 things. It could be that you don't have a microphone, or that your microphone is part of a, let's say, a webcam that maybe is being used in the background by another piece of software. So sometimes that happens as well. Okay, so let's go to another add-on that I just learned about recently called DrForm. So one thing we haven't done yet is I haven't shown you how to find those add-ons, although most of you probably clicked on add-ons and figured it out. But if I'm in a document and I want to see what else I can do, what are some of those third-party applications that I can use, I can click on add-ons, And what will happen is every add-on that I've ever added to Google Docs will actually show up. So consistency checker, for example, is one of my favorites. What that will do is with a really long document, let's say that kids are working on a 5-page report, or let's go back to that student handbook example. What consistency checker will do is it will actually scan your document and check for consistency. So if you've got the number 1, 2, and 3 spelled out in some parts of your report, and then in other parts of your report you actually have the digits, it will flag it and say, hey, you've got 1 as the number 1, and you have 1 spelled out, you know, O-N-E. Which one do you want to keep? And so it kind of flags things that that you wouldn't necessarily even catch yourself. It'll ask, you know, why did you use apostrophes? You've said can't 3 times and cannot once. And so it won't change it for you. It will just make you aware of those types of consistencies. Another one that I really love before I go to the last one that I'm going to show you is GMath. So GMath actually allows you to create a handwriting entry right in your Google Doc. So how many times have we tried to use the equation editor, which we do have. If you go to Insert, Equation, you do have an equation editor here that you can use. But some of the third-party applications are also a little bit easier to use. This is a formula editor, for example. But in GMath, which also you can create math expressions, I'm going to go ahead and create a handwriting entry because I think this is pretty unique. So you'll notice that I get a grid here in the middle of my screen. I'm going to work out a problem, a really easy one, so that I don't get it wrong. I'm actually a math girl, so. But let's say I had kids, you know, showing me what 4 plus 4 was, okay, and drawing symbols. I mean, I've created a handwriting entry here, and I can actually scroll down, although I'm not going to be able to do that. If I click on this plus sign, you will see an image of what I just did actually go into the document. So let's say that I had a word problem for students, and I wanted them to, I don't know, solve an equation as part of the word problem. The word problem could be in a Google Doc, and then using GMath, kids could then work the problem out and put it inside of the document. Oh my, and this is taking way too long. I'm not sure why that didn't work like it was supposed to, but it says my minions are working to insert your recognized math into your doc. So if you've got a Google Doc open, you can go ahead and try that one. That one's actually pretty cool. Another one that I really like that I just got exposed to is this one called DrForm. So look what you can do here. How many of you have documents that maybe are in a Word doc with like multiple choice questions or questions that you use to put together assessments? Well, in this case, DrForm will actually allow you to bring in that document. Okay, so assume that you've uploaded your Microsoft Word document and you have converted it into a Google Doc. You can add your add-on. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Go to DrForm, and you can actually have a form created from your document, and it's pretty simple. So on the right-hand side, whenever you click on one of these add-ons, you'll usually see a dialog box pop up with instructions. In this case, they're asking me if on the form that I want to create, do I want to collect a username? Do I want to ask for a name? So it'll automatically create a question that will capture the name. I've got my question 1. So over on the left-hand side, I've got my multiple choice exam, and I highlight the text first, and then I go back to question 1 and say use selected text. So you notice that the question just popped in. What kind of type is it? It's a text, so I don't have to worry about that. If I wanted to have a fill in the blank, it would be text. If I want it to be a multiple choice, which that's what this question is, I can select multiple choice, and then I can go back into my document, and even though I've got the ABC selections, I can just do a Control-C and a Control-V to paste, and it's asking me to separate the answers with semicolons. So this is a lot easier than having to like copy and paste and sometimes answers one by one, which is sometimes what you end up doing. So you're able to actually create a Google form from this add-on, which is really super cool. And you can even add questions separately. So I don't know those of you who have seen this, but it's pretty amazing. And I think, again, for those of us who have a lot of information already in this kind of format, and you don't have the time to maybe put it in a Google form, this is a super shortcut that you can use. Okay. Finally, how do we get add-ons? Oops, sorry, Amy, go ahead. That's the last thing I'm going to show.
Oh no, you're doing great.
Okay, good. So we can go to add-ons. You're going to click on get add-ons to actually search the Addon Library, and there are lots and lots of add-ons. Open Clipart is another one of my favorite. There are 50,000 clipart images. So usually I tell my kids to download that one. Lucid Chart, so if you've got kids working on workflow. EasyBib is another one that gets used quite a bit. What EasyBib will do is it will allow you to, let's say kids are citing information in a Google document, but they're not citing it correctly. They're just keeping track of maybe the author of a book or the author and the title of an article. EasyBib will actually, you can highlight those words, you use the add-on EasyBib, and it will go out and it will find the correct citation. You tell it what citation format you're looking for, and it will bring in that citation for you. So there's plenty here. And you've even got your A-relabel merge for those of you who want to do some mail merging. Okay. So I wonder if there's any questions, or if folks are still in that document kind of playing around. But that's kind of your basic, that's your basics of Google Docs. There's lots of things that, lots of really interesting ways that you can engage students using what you would have thought was just a traditional word processor, but is really so much more now.
Well, thank you, Blanca. I think we got to wrap it up. It's almost 3 o'clock, but there'll be other opportunities to ask more questions, you guys. So I'm going to change back to my screen. And hopefully everybody can see that. So thank you, Blanca, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar and being so interactive. So hopefully this was helpful. If you do have any other questions, please contact me at the email you see on the screen once you leave today's webinar. You will also receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you guys would complete it and provide your feedback, because we're always looking for more feedback and improvements. This survey is very important to the Nevada 21 project to help us evaluate these professional learning webinars. So please don't forget to visit our nr21.ctl.net website for news and information for Nevada Ready 21 educators. And you also see a link here that we want to invite you to our upcoming webinars in May, so keep an eye on that, and you'll see that website right there. Of course, it's on the regular NR21 website. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with the link to view this recording of today's webinar. So that will be accessible as well at any time, and you can watch it as many times as you would like. And on behalf of CTL and our presenters, we thank you guys for joining us today. So have a great rest of your day.